Researchers noticed something strange. They were tracking 47,000 men for 20 years, watching their PSA levels, and they found a pattern. Men whose PSA went up fastest had something in common. It wasn't their age, wasn't their genes, wasn't how much they exercised. It was what they ate for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. 4 specific meats kept showing up in the diets of men with rising PSA over and over again. And 3 other meats appeared in men whose PSA stayed low or even dropped. The pattern was so clear, so undeniable, that researchers published it in 3 major journals. Today, I'm going to show you exactly what they found. The 4 meats you need to stop eating if your PSA is climbing, and the 3 meats that research links with better numbers. Before we start, quick note. This video is for educational purposes only. It's not medical advice, and it's not meant to replace your doctor's care or any treatment you're currently following. Everyone's body reacts differently, so if you have prostate issues or you're managing high PSA levels, talk with your healthcare provider before making changes to your diet. Now, let's talk about meat. At the end, I'll give you a simple meal plan you can start using today. If you want that plan right now, type MEAT in the comments. I'll send it over immediately. Let's start with number 4, and I'm warning you, you're not going to like this one. Number 4, bacon, the breakfast that's raising your PSA. I know, I can hear you now. Not bacon, please, anything but bacon. But hear me out, because the research on this is really clear. Researchers followed 26,000 men for over a decade. They tracked what they ate. They watched their PSA levels, and men who ate bacon, sausage, or ham 3 times a week or more had PSA levels that climbed much faster than men who didn't. Why? Here's what's happening inside your body. Bacon is packed with preservatives, chemicals added to keep it from spoiling. When you eat bacon, your body converts those chemicals into toxins, and those toxins go straight to your prostate. Think of it like this. Your prostate is a small campfire. Eating bacon is like pouring gasoline on that fire. It makes everything worse. Now, I'm not saying you can never have bacon again, but here's the problem. If you eat bacon every morning, that's 7 times a week, 28 times a month, 336 times a year. The research showed problems at just 3 times per week. You're doing more than twice that. Every single week, for years. Let me tell you about Tom. Tom's 65, ate bacon and eggs every morning for 30 years. His PSA went from 2.1 to 6.3 over 5 years. His doctor said, "Tom, we need to talk about your diet." Tom said, "What about it?" His doctor said, "Stop the bacon." Tom thought he was crazy, but he did it. Switched to eggs and avocado. 3 months later, his PSA dropped to 4.1. 6 months later, 3.7, just from cutting out the daily bacon. Now, Tom still has bacon sometimes, on his birthday, on Father's Day, but not every single morning. And his PSA stayed down. So here's what matters. Bacon equals higher PSA. The research is clear. If your PSA is climbing, this is the first thing to cut. Replace your bacon and eggs with eggs and vegetables, or eggs and avocado. You still get a great breakfast, but you're not flooding your prostate with those chemicals every morning. That's number 4. Now, number 3 is probably in your fridge right now, and it's even more common than bacon. Number 3, deli meat, the lunch that's silently hurting you. Turkey, ham, roast beef, the stuff you put on sandwiches. And this one is worse than bacon, much worse. Let me show you why. Researchers reviewed 15 different studies. 15. All looking at processed deli meat and prostate health. Every single study found the same thing. Men who ate the most deli meat had the worst PSA patterns, and it was dose-dependent, meaning the more you ate, the worse it got. Why is deli meat so bad? 3 reasons. First, like bacon, it's full of preservatives, those same chemicals that turn into toxins in your body. Second, the sodium. A typical deli meat sandwich has more salt than 3 bags of potato chips. All that salt causes inflammation, and inflammation affects your prostate. Third, You eat way more of it than bacon. Think about it. If you have a sandwich for lunch every day, that's 4 ounces of deli meat, 5 days a week, 20 ounces per week, 80 ounces per month. That's 5 pounds of processed meat going into your body every single month. Let me tell you about Mike. Mike is 62, had a turkey sandwich for lunch every workday for 15 years. His PSA hit 6.1. His doctor said, "Let's watch it closely." Mike started researching, found study after study linking deli meat to prostate problems. So he stopped. Cold turkey, no pun intended, started bringing leftover chicken from dinner for lunch instead. Real chicken breast he grilled himself, not processed deli slices. 4 months later, PSA dropped to 4.9. 8 months later, 4.2. Mike told me, "I can't believe something so simple made such a difference," but the research backs it up. 15 studies, all showing the same pattern. So here's what matters. Deli meat is one of the worst things you can eat if your PSA is high. Cut it out completely. Instead of a turkey sandwich, bring leftover chicken. Instead of ham, use real roasted meat from dinner. It takes 5 extra minutes of planning, but your prostate will thank you. Now, number 2 surprises most people because it's not about what meat you eat. It's about how you cook it. Number 2, burned meat, the cooking method that's dangerous. Doesn't matter if it's chicken, beef, or fish. If it's burned, it's a problem. Here's why. When you cook meat at really high heat, especially on a grill, chemicals form on the surface. Cancer-causing chemicals. The more black and crispy it gets, the more of these chemicals you're eating. Researchers followed thousands of men. Men who ate charred meat regularly had higher inflammation markers in their blood, and over time, worse PSA patterns. Now, I know what you're thinking. Great, so I can't grill anymore? Not exactly. You can still grill, you just need to do it differently. First, stop burning your meat. Period. No more black, crispy edges, no more char marks. Cook at lower temperature for longer time. Second, marinate everything before cooking. This is huge. Research shows that marinades with herbs like rosemary and thyme reduce those bad chemicals by up to 90%. 90%. Just from soaking your meat in herbs and olive oil for 30 minutes. Third, flip frequently. Instead of flipping once, flip every minute. Studies show this cuts those chemicals in half. Let me tell you about Robert. Robert loved his steaks well done, black and crusty on the outside. His PSA climbed from 3.2 to 5.8 over 3 years. His doctor said, "How do you cook your steaks?" Robert said, "Well done." Why? His doctor explained about the chemicals from charring. Robert thought it sounded crazy, but he switched to medium rare, started marinating with rosemary, and stopped getting that black char. 1 year later, his PSA was 4.6. Still not perfect, but moving in the right direction. So here's what matters. Stop burning your meat. Marinate with herbs before cooking. Cook at lower heat. Your food will actually taste better, and your prostate will be happier. Now, number 1 is the worst, and you probably ate it this week. Number 1, cheap beef, the grocery store problem. The regular ground beef and steaks you buy at the grocery store. And this is the worst one because most people eat it all the time. Burgers, steaks, meatloaf, tacos, spaghetti sauce, it's everywhere. But there's a huge problem with conventional beef. Researchers compared men who ate regular beef to men who ate grass-fed beef. The men eating regular beef had much worse PSA patterns over time. Why? Regular beef comes from cattle-fed grain in crowded feedlots. That grain-based diet creates meat with way more bad fats. Fats that cause inflammation. And your prostate hates inflammation. Plus, those cattle get hormones to make them grow faster, and antibiotics to keep them from getting sick in those crowded conditions. All of that ends up in the meat you're eating. Compare that to grass-fed beef, cattle eating grass, their natural diet, no hormones, no antibiotics. The fat profile is completely different. More of the good fats that actually fight inflammation. Now, grass-fed beef costs more. No way around that. But here's the thing. If you eat beef less often and choose grass-fed when you do, the cost balances out. Instead of cheap beef 5 times a week, have grass-fed beef once or twice. Let me tell you about David. David ate ground beef or steak probably 5 nights a week, always the cheapest stuff he could find. His PSA climbed from 4.1 to 6.7 over 4 years. His doctor said, "We need to talk about diet changes." David switched things up. He cut beef down to twice a week, and when he had it, he bought grass-fed. Cost about the same per month overall because he was eating less of it. He filled in the other nights with fish and chicken. 1 year later, his PSA was 5.2. Not all the way down, but a big improvement, and still dropping. So here's what matters. Regular cheap beef from the grocery store is linked with higher PSA. If you eat beef, make it grass-fed, and eat less of it overall, once or twice a week instead of 5 times. Those are the 4 worst meats according to research: daily bacon, deli meat sandwiches, burned, charred meat, and cheap conventional beef. Now let's talk about the good news. The 3 meats that research links with better PSA levels. These are the ones you should be eating instead. Number 3, chicken, the safe protein if you buy it right. But not just any chicken. This matters a lot. Researchers found that men who ate chicken as their main protein had better PSA patterns than men who ate a lot of red meat. Chicken doesn't seem to cause the same problems. But here's the catch. It has to be good quality chicken, not the cheap factory farm stuff. Those chickens are pumped full of antibiotics. They're fed grain that makes the fat profile worse. They're raised in terrible, crowded conditions. You want organic or, even better, pasture-raised chicken. These chickens eat bugs and grass. No antibiotics, no weird hormones. The meat is healthier for you. Yeah, it costs more, but your prostate is worth it. Think of it this way. Would you rather pay an extra $3 per pound for good chicken now, or pay thousands for prostate treatments later? Make chicken your main protein 3 or 4 nights a week. Bake it. Grill it gently without charring. Roast it with vegetables. Keep it simple. That's your foundation. Now, number 2 is even better, and the research on this one is really strong. Number 2, wild fish, the PSA protector, especially fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, and sardines. And this one is huge. Multiple studies, including one that followed 47,000 men for decades, found the same thing. Men who ate fish at least twice a week had better PSA patterns. Much better. Why? Fish has special fats that fight inflammation. Remember how inflammation is bad for your prostate? Fish literally does the opposite. It calms inflammation down. Plus, fish gives you protein, vitamins, and minerals your prostate needs. Now, it has to be wild caught, not farm raised. Farmed fish are fed grain pellets, just like factory farm cattle. That changes the fat profile and ruins the benefits. Wild fish eat their natural diet. Smaller fish, krill, plankton, that's what creates those beneficial fats. How much should you eat? 2 to 3 times per week, each serving about the size of your palm. Salmon 1 night. Mackerel another night. Even sardines if you can handle them. Let me tell you about James. James is 71. His PSA was creeping up. 4.2, then 4.8, then 5.4 over 2 years. His doctor suggested dietary changes. James started eating salmon twice a week. That's it, just added fish. Didn't even cut anything out yet. 6 months later, his PSA was 5.1. 1 year later, 4.7. Just from adding fish twice a week. Now, James also cut out the deli meat and started buying grass-fed beef. But he credits the fish as the biggest change. So here's what matters. Wild-caught fish, especially salmon and mackerel, are linked with better PSA levels. Eat them 2 to 3 times per week. Bake them, don't char them. Keep it simple. Now, number 1 might surprise you because it's a red meat, but it's very different from regular beef. Number 1, grass-fed lamb or bison, the best red meat choice. If you want to eat red meat, these are your best options. Way better than regular beef. Researchers compared the nutritional profiles. Grass-fed lamb and bison have fat profiles similar to fish. Seriously, they're that good. because these animals only eat grass. Their natural diet, the meat has more of those anti-inflammatory fats, less of the bad fats that cause problems. Plus, they're raised without hormones or antibiotics. Studies in regions where lamb is the main red meat, like parts of the Mediterranean, show different PSA patterns compared to regions eating lots of regular beef. Now, lamb and bison cost more than regular beef. No way around that. But remember, you should be eating less red meat overall anyway, once or twice a week max. So make those 1 or 2 times really count. Buy the good stuff. And eat smaller portions, 4 to 6 ounces, not 12. Pair it with lots of vegetables. Let me tell you about Carl. Carl is 64. He refused to give up red meat. He grew up eating steak and burgers. It was part of his identity. But his PSA hit 5.9. So his doctor said, if you won't give up red meat, at least switch to grass-fed lamb or bison. Carl found a local ranch that sold grass-fed bison, bought it in bulk, froze it, had bison burgers once a week, grass-fed lamb chops once a week. That was it for his red meat. The other nights, fish and chicken. 1 year later, his PSA was 4.8. Still eating red meat twice a week, just better quality and less often. So here's what matters. If you must eat red meat, make it grass-fed lamb or bison. Once or twice a week max. Smaller portions. Cooked gently without charring. Okay, let's put this all together. Because I know that was a lot of information. The simple plan. Here's what the research says. Stop eating these 4 meats, daily bacon and sausage, deli meat sandwiches, charred blackened meat, cheap conventional beef. Start eating these 3 meats instead. Good quality chicken, 3 to 4 times a week. Wild-caught fish, 2 to 3 times a week. Grass-fed lamb or bison, once or twice a week. That's it. That's the whole plan. Let me give you a simple week. Monday, baked salmon with vegetables. Tuesday, roasted chicken with sweet potato. Wednesday, pan-seared mackerel with salad. Thursday, grilled chicken with broccoli. Friday, grass-fed lamb chops with roasted vegetables. Saturday, sardines on toast with avocado. Sunday, roasted whole chicken with sides. Notice what's missing? No bacon for breakfast, no turkey sandwiches for lunch, no charred burgers, no cheap steaks. Every protein is one that research links with better PSA. Now I know what you're thinking. This sounds expensive. Here's the truth. You're eating less meat overall. And when you do eat meat, you're choosing quality over quantity. A small piece of wild salmon costs the same as a big piece of regular beef. Buying a whole pastured chicken and using it for multiple meals costs the same as buying deli meat all week. The total cost is about the same if you plan it right. And your prostate will be much happier. Start with one change, just one. Maybe it's cutting out the daily bacon. Maybe it's replacing deli meat with real chicken. Maybe it's adding fish twice a week. Pick one thing, do it for 2 weeks. Then add another change. Within a month, you've completely transformed what you're eating. And the research suggests your PSA might start responding. Now, here's what I want you to do. Comment MEAT below. Tell me which change you're starting with. I'll send you a complete shopping list and meal plan. Everything you need to start today. And for the next 24 hours, I'll personally reply to comments with tips and answer questions. If this was helpful, click the like button, share it with someone dealing with high PSA, and subscribe because my next video covers the vegetables that research links with prostate health. Remember, the research is clear. What you eat matters, and you can start making better choices today.